Aloha, children of the night, and welcome to the Tiki Goth Club. Today I am in the Wicker Bar, and I have two esteemed guests with me tonight.
Distinguished
guests. Blaine, introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Lord Zippy Blaine, the Duke of the gosh darn mother freaking Del Ridge. I'm here. This is my little slice of the world.
Yeah, and you make videos.
I do. I make cocktail
like
videos. You can check out. I have a channel on YouTube. Where we keep pushing.
What's it called?
Happy Hour at the Wicker Bar.
Happy Hour at the Wicker Bar.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And then over here we have Stephen Holtz.
Yeah, I am the co-host of the Bone Bat Show and the Comedy of Horrors Film Festival.
And today we're going to talk about comedy and horror.
One of my favorite subjects.
Well, two subjects at the same time, right? And where comedy's place is in horror. Should it be there? Should it not be there? Does it need it? Is horror comedy? That's what we're going to talk about. So, I finally got around to watching the movie Spider Baby.
Yes.
And I've always heard about this movie Spider Baby. And I watched
Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr. And the theme song comes up, and it's like screams and bones, and I'm like, why does that song sound familiar? And I'm like, it's an Accused. The Accused covered it.
Yeah, we did.
And I'm like, holy shit! And because I guess the alternate name of the movie is The Maddest Story Ever Told.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god! Well, obviously Blaine knows about this movie,
right?
And I watched the movie and I loved it. And the thing that I found that was interesting about it is that there's this like level of comedy to it. It's like a scary movie, but there's like elements of humor in it. And then at the same time, I've been watching William Castle movies, and a lot of his movies kind of have this like level of comedy to it. And it made me start thinking, it's like, where is comedy's role in horror, or does it need to be? And if there's anyone to talk about horror and comedy,
right?
It's you. So, and you too. Well, first of all, what is the Comedy of Horrors thing that you put on?
So the Comedy Horrors Film Festival is an annual event where we basically curate comedy horror shorts from around the world, also features and live music as a part of it as well.
Yeah.
And my co-host Gordon and I, we grew up with films that some of the films that affected us most were things like Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
So films that had scares mixed with laughs. And at some point it dawned upon us that, I've always really enjoyed films that give me a physical response.
Yeah.
Laughing is great. Being scared is great.
Yeah.
And there's something about getting intense, being scared, being frightened, and then having that diffused by a laugh that to me is somewhat magical.
Yeah.
And it makes it, for us, one of the highest art forms. And so just trying to pile that on and make an entire evening of it has been a goal. And, one of the first things I remember, like, thinking back, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Was what, like, I went to a kid's birthday party and I saw this. And
was that back in the 30s or something like that?
Yeah, that's when I was growing up in the 30s.
How old are you, Steve?
No, in the 70s. I had a friend in
You're a lot older than I thought you were.
Had a friend in middle school whose dad had a 16mm projector. And so he had films like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Okay,
that's great.
And it was super cool. And that was like my first, this is fun.
Yeah.
It's spooky, but it's also hilarious. And where can I find more of that? And I've built a whole hobby around that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Blaine, I mean, like, what's your take on, like, obviously you like horror, but like, what are your favorite types of horror?
When you first called me on the telephone,
yeah,
and we had that first 3-hour chat about woodshedding, your ideas. What came to me is there was a movie called The Undertaker and His Pals. I can't remember who it's by. It's one of those ones that was during that late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember the whole thing. The Undertaker, funeral home. He's like selling body parts to this diner. and there's this the black guy that's working back in the kitchen, and at one point they show, and the guys they're like these biker guys, and they're going around, and they go to this gal's apartment. Her name's Lamb, and then the next day at the diner, they're serving leg of lamb. And then there's another scene where they're serving chicken, and I don't know if they killed the black guy, the cook or whatever, but at first there's light meat. Oh, and we have dark meat too. It's just.
When did this movie come out?
That's in that whole Hershel Gordon Lewis, whenever those were.
Okay, well, I got to see this movie. Okay, we'll talk about Hershel Gordon Lewis, right? Like, I remember, like, when I discovered Hershel Gordon Lewis, and it's like, oh, these are, like, the goriest movies you'll ever see. Yeah. And I remember seeing the movie Gore Girls, and there's the part where there's, like, the head, and he's, like, picking out the eye of the head, and it's just going. And it's, like, unbelievably gory, and my reaction is, like, oh, my God, this is so scary. I'm like...
Right.
Oh my God!
Well, and that red blood paint that he would use in all of that, like Blood Feast too.
Yeah.
Like it's so not like blood.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's scary if you were watching it back then and you were 15 or 16 years old. But then when you watch it now, it's like there's the whole there is the camp kitsch.
Yeah.
Was that intentional though, or do you think that just happened? Especially with Hershel Gordon Lewis.
I think it was intentional.
You think so?
I think that there was a level of. Did he do the gruesome tusome?
Yes, I think so.
Where their mother and the son, they've got the wig shop, and they've got the old style Oster electric carving knife, and they're like scalping these women and selling. So right, they were selling. They were selling the scalps at the wig store. So
the trailer for that is great.
Yeah,
I remember we went down and we saw in Tacoma when they used to do the Grindhouse nights at the Blue Mouse Theater.
Oh, what? What's this all?
Shout out to Jason Giallo. Justin Giallo.
What's this all about?
And they were showing trailers, and Gruesome Twosome was one of the ones that they showed before that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of trailers, there's Something Weird Video.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got this DVD where it's just all trailers.
Yeah.
But it's like 3 hours of trailers of sex, drugs, horror, and debauchery. Yeah. And it's just sort of like as I was watching, I could feel my brain kind of like deteriorating. I'm like, okay, this is how it goes. And it's like, I'm finding all of it funny. Hmm. So, is comedy needed in horror? Or is it just something that can be added?
It's funny because I always think of things like even scenes like, remember in Alien? Yeah. Alien's a very serious film for most of it. Yeah. But then you've got the scene where Kane and is it Kane and Brett? No, Brett and the Yaphet Kotto's character. Yeah. And they're arguing about it. Shouldn't they get more money for their contract because they woke him up early? And it's a very funny scene. Yeah. And so there are a lot of movies where it's played very serious, but you will have those moments of humor to sort of keep the audience on their toes, I think.
Yeah, no, well, even on the flip side of that, like say, like Ed Wood movies, like you like Ed Wood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's like, well, is that supposed to be a serious movie?
But those, I mean, to me, those aren't scary.
Or like a lot of those B movies where they kind of like they're funny, but like that wasn't the intention, right?
Right.
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
But American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
That's a scary film, and it's a hilarious film.
Yeah.
When the main character, David's friend, keeps coming back from the dead, telling him to kill himself.
Yeah. And doesn't he get more and more rotted?
Yeah, he's more rotted, and there's more of the victims that he's murdered are around him each time he sees him. It's like, kill yourself, David. It's not going to get any better. Kill yourself. Like, it's super funny. And so to have those scenes, I think, really makes sense. Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead.
Is, you have it before that scene. Zombies coming at you fast. They're terrifying. The practical effects are great.
And they're punk rockers.
And
no, serious.
Like the scenes, our people.
Yeah, right. What did you think when you probably saw the trailer for Return of the Living Dead? You're like, finally, a movie for us.
I was probably a little bit older than you guys when that came out, so it probably didn't, demographically speaking, didn't hit me quite as hard. But yeah.
But like James Karen, do you know the story? of Night of the Living Dead. Like that whole scene is beautiful comedy. He plays it so well and hams it up. It's wonderful.
Send more cops. That's the part that I saw. That was my introduction to Dinah Cancer and 45 Grave. You know, do you want to party? It's party time. What about Dawn of the Dead? Was that a comedy? There's a level of comedy to that, right? Where they're in the mall.
Oh, I think well, with that one, there's a whole bunch of like
social commentary,
social stuff that's supposed to be wrapped up into that. So I like it.
So now I'm thinking about it, it's like a lot of the movies we're talking about. There is a level of comedy to it,
yeah, intentional
or not. Or like I was thinking about, like say, like the slasher films of the '80s, like Friday the 13th, especially when you get to like number 6. It's funny. It's like
Isn't one more they're on the spaceship, or is that?
Yeah, that's Jason Goes to Space.
Oh, Jason, all right. You know, it's like Jesus. I mean, right? I mean, it's like it's the level of absurdity. It's like how can you not?
Right. Well, and I think that also, like, the very first Nightmare on Elm Street is pretty damn scary.
Hell yeah, it is.
That's a terrifying film.
Yeah.
But by 3, they're playing up the comedy.
Yeah.
Robert Englund is doing more to ham it up for the camera.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be scary over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think you see that in all 3 of the franchises. I think Halloween plays it a little more seriously, a little longer, but definitely Friday the 13th has its moments of high comedy, and the later 4 through 6 and on.
No, wait, I don't think there's any comedy in the Halloween franchise. 1 or 2 is pretty damn serious, and 3
is fun.
3 is 3
is campy.
You think
fun.
It's funny?
It's scary, but it's fun.
I find that
because of Tom Atkins. His performance at times, and again in Night of the Creeps, where he really leans into it.
Yeah.
Ladies, I've gotten good news. Your dates are here, but they're dead.
But then, like, let's talk about the other side of horror films. Like, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's nothing funny about that movie. Or do you find it funny? I mean, is there a level of humor to... Because I don't. To me, it's like...
When the guy's burning himself with the iron and with the coat hanger.
That's 2.
That's in part 2.
Yeah,
so
that one
is, you know,
the first
dog will hunt.
Yeah,
that one's
been such
definitely
a long
played
time
with
since I've seen the couple of the remakes. You know,
but
even with the first one, wasn't it like in reality, like they really never showed on screen anybody actually?
They don't even when the girls put up on a hook.
Yeah,
they cut away. Like that movie shows surprisingly less than you think it shows.
Right.
When you watch it closely.
But it doesn't matter, you know. It's effective. But then there's like other...
Because your imagination is always worse than what you're seeing on the screen.
I mean, what's your thoughts of like they're calling it torture porn, like these horror movies where it's like Saw, but like over the top, where it's just like hostile, and there is no comedy to it. What do you think of those movies? Is it because
they've got a place,
yeah,
but I'm not going to show something like that at the Comedy of Horrors.
No,
I mean,
I guess, but it could be once again of the absurdity, just the over the top. How can you possibly, But they're disturbing.
I was just talking to a loved one about the Saw films, and she talks about one of the later films. There's like 3 scalpings in a row, and that's funny because. Why would there be 3 scalpings in a row?
I finally got around to watching The Devil's Rejects, the Rob Zombie movie. I watched an interview with him, and he was talking about how Spider Baby was a really, really big influence on him. So that's why when in his movies, they have like that family, and they're all messed up and shit like that. But the thing, before I begin, have you guys seen it, and what do you think of it?
Some of those Rob Zombie ones I've watched like just once, and
you're like, okay.
If I watch it at home, I'm not as focused if I was to see it in a theater.
What about you, Steven?
Yeah, it's just, for me, Devil's Rejects is a very strange film.
Yeah.
Because it has scenes of horrifying violence.
Yeah.
And then they play that off of the Firefly family going and getting ice cream together.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to feel that there's a humanity to that family that also, like, cut the face off this woman. And, it's hard to put that together. And then it ends with this, free bird riding off into the sunset ending, which is kind of absurd in and of itself. So that is a film like there's some comedy in it, but it can be a brutal watch.
Yeah, but it's not really. I didn't find it like funny though. And the thing that I didn't like, it's almost too serious. And if there is any comedy to it, it's just sort of like, yeah, you know. I mean, but this is another thing that I was realizing, like in getting back to Spider Baby, like the family, they're like likable though. You know, Lon Chaney Jr. is awesome. The two girls are, you know, how can you not love them? And then you have Sid Haig. But in The Devil's Rejects, I don't know, something about Rob Zombie's wife where you're just sort of like, she's just grating, and then like all the characters are just sort of like, you know, I don't know. There wasn't anything funny about it, and I'm like, there needs to be that comedy. Like, have you guys seen Hereditary or Midsommar?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've seen both of those.
Well, there's nothing fucking funny about either of those movies.
They're not super funny.
They're great movies, though.
You were mentioning earlier on Evil Dead.
Yes,
you know,
let's talk about Evil Dead.
I mean, it's, you know, some people love it or some people hate it. I mean, there's tons of humor.
No,
and I think obviously it was a launching board for Bruce Campbell. Just got funnier and funnier and funnier with.
Well, they would play the madcap like Evil Dead 2. More humor. Army of Darkness really leans into the Three Stooges love that Raimi had and Bruce. Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I saw Evil Dead 2. Like I was on like HBO or something like that, so it was kind of already happening. And it's the scene where he's in the house and they're all laughing at him, and he's like, and I remember like watching it, and it's like he's falling down and his hands like slapping him and shit like that. I'm like, is this really happening? Is this like what's going on? Is this a comedy? No, this is a horror movie. And it took me a while to realize, like, okay, this is what they're doing. Which one do you guys like better? Evil Dead 1, which is kind of serious, or Evil Dead 2?
I'm always a fan of the first one.
Me too.
Although that last one that they put out wasn't too bad.
I would lean towards Evil Dead 2 because you get Evil Dead 1 in the first 10 minutes. They basically remade it with a higher budget and then went on from there. So I feel like you get the best of both worlds in Evil Dead 2.
Well, speaking of best of both worlds, we so far all we've been talking about is horror movies where there's like elements of comedy in them. Mm-hmm. But then you have movies like Shaun of the Dead where it's like, this is a horror comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, what makes a horror comedy different than just like a horror movie that happens to have funny stuff in it?
They're deliberately making a comedy. Well, Shaun of the Dead or
even the
Zombieland.
Yeah.
You know,
Gremlins, really. If you think Gremlins is a good example of a horror comedy, I would say. Where
That's a good point, Blake.
Some bleak shit
That's
happens.
A really good point. I didn't think of it that way. It's essentially a comedy movie that happens to have horror in it. I'm glad that we had this conversation because I think the comedy kind of needs to be there one way or another, in a way. There are horror movies that don't have comedy in it. But it seems like we're all kind of like, we all like a horror with a little bit of comedy. A little bit of something funny.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And I got something for you, Blaine.
Uh-oh.
I want to make you a member of the Tiki Goth Club.
Oh.
So hold on one second.
I was about to protect you. Aww. What number?
I would have wore my shirt.
So as a member, you're 155.
Oh, all right.
You get your own membership card.
Very good.
You get some stickers.
All right.
In this little black envelope.
I like the black envelope.
Yeah, and the only people that have the pins are members of the Tiki Goth Club.
Steve.
I'm a member.
Yep.
Yes, you are.
Julie is a member. I'm a member. Yeah.
So it means a lot to have me come over and have you on the show. So thank you very much, Blaine.
Thank you.
One last question. What's fast zombies or slow zombies?
I prefer slow zombies.
Do you really?
I do.
But you have a song called "Fast Zombies Rule."
I know that was.
Or did you?
That was then. God, that was a long time. No, I like the slow ones. It just seems more natural for a zombie.
Yeah.
The fast ones seem like there's some other stuff that's involved in the reanimation process that makes them go so fast.
I like the original, the remake of the Dawn of the Dead, because that's the first time like you have the fast zombies, and I just love the fact that they're running at full speed. I just thought that was so.
The first time you have the fast zombies is like a Zombie 2 or Zombie 3.
Yeah,
when they got off the airplane, and they're not just zombies, but then that goes into the whole. I mean that whole. Yeah, but and they get off the plane and they got. Do they have guns?
I think
like
so.
Machetes. And
yeah, it was...
they're zombies and they're fully armed, and that one's got the zombie head. Is that Zombie 3 or is that Zombie 2?
I think that's Zombie 3, right? Zombie 2 is just on the island.
And then
and then the ship rolls in at the end to New York City.
Yeah. The shark.
Yeah.
Fighting.
Zombie versus shark, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Zombie versus shark. The Tiki Goth Club is way more than just this YouTube program. It's also a club that you can join. For $15, you can become a member of the Tiki Goth Club. You get your own membership card with your own number. I'll send you a couple stickers and a pin. I also have shirts for sale, patches, and glasses. If you're interested in any of this, head over to my website, tikigothclub.com, and everything's there.